Yo, how's it going, everybody? So, what the heck? Yep, Love on the Spectrum. I'm watching episode, what is that, 6? Yep, 5, actually. And so I'm watching. I forget her name. I know his name's Peter. Kaylee? Might be Kaylee. I find it interesting. I was watching this and I was like, this is interesting because they had certain terms. She says he's sweet, he's nice, and all that, and then he says she's sweet, he's nice, and all that. And to me, it made me think about dating because dating, especially as it relates to both of these genders, is that they could say the same thing and mean different things. And I just want to discuss the subtext a little. So Peter, she says he's very sweet, um, but he carries a better conversation than the last dude she had went the speed dating route with. And what's her name? Katie. I think her name's Katie, not Kaylee. Katie, and she's kind of giving him the time of day. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying that like she likes him, so she will be want to give him the time of day. And so he says she's sweet, she's nice. Well, I mean, before that, she was like, I don't know. It just she she's on the spectrum. I'm not sure if he's on the spectrum. He might be. I mean, they try to set up like dating and stuff in the speed dating, but I'm not sure if the people she speed dates is on the spectrum or not. But for one, the subtext I see with my eyes is that Peter's a bigger dude. He's compared to the women. I mean, compared to the men she's talked to, Peter's a lot bigger. But the thing is, he's the way he postures himself is like a nice guy, like a a a a person who is like an introvert or like what is described as submissive. And I don't even want to say it like that because submissive is a loaded term that people can misconstrue. But Peter, he's a nice guy who postures himself like kind of meek almost because you see he's a big guy but he's hunched over a little bit. You can see like his neck a little bit. He's a little hunched over and he's nice and he's kind of goofy because he gives like that honest laugh that like that people don't are afraid to give because they're like, oh man, I want to be judged by my laugh. But yeah, he's like that, so he seemed to be honest. And then they both seem he seems to be able to carry a good conversation, and the dudes before that could not carry a good conversation, and nor were they as built. um and Katie is just she says she already has problems carrying the conversation, but at the same time, the dude he asked her because like, and I guess in the past conversations, she was a little afraid about what you call it, talking about her autism, and I think she had a really bad experience where a dude just opted out. He got up and left. But part of it was because she lied about her dog. You know, that was a kind of a red flag because she's out here lying. She said something about she was being a dog trainer or something, and then uh, and when he had to kind of prime her about it, she finally told him that she was autistic. And now, mind you, some people they use autism as they don't use autism as an excuse. They lie, they make excuses, and autism being one of those excuses. When autism is a brain difference, it's a neurodiversity versus a neurotypical brain difference. So they're not just behaving different; the way their brains are set up is different. So it's just it makes sense why he bailed because she was lying the first time, uh, and she finally fessed up, and maybe that wasn't enough for him. Another thing that was a little interesting when she mentioned a prior relationship because she dated a blind dude, and the dude had CNI dog, and she was a little surprised that he dumped her because made the comparison of the stuff like wanting kids and moving to the city, and he was saying she couldn't handle loud noises. um and people on the autism spectrum tend to be have a sensitivity to sensations such as loud noises and bright lights, and it depends on the where you are on the spectrum and how you fit there, what you're more sensitive to than others, and they have more specific interests and stuff. And she said she was surprised because that blind her previous relationship, the guy was blind. Um, say she was too disabled for him, and she was like, that's kind of insane because he's blind. And the thing is, he's not dumb. You know, he doesn't have her problems. He just happens to not be able to see. You know, and who knows what grading that could have been. He could have been legally blind. He could have been actually blind where there's no light reaching his eyes. I'm sorry, no light reflecting off things and reaching his eyes for his brain to process sight. Um, but the thing is, he wasn't stupid. He weighed the options. He seen what she was interested in, and not just interested in it, but what she could handle. And he saw what he could handle, and he saw what he wanted, and saw what she couldn't, how she didn't fit in what he wanted, and he broke it off. Like that's a very mature discussion about what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And being blind doesn't stop you from being a conscious person. But yeah, sorry, I want to go back to the subtext. It was just very interesting, and you know, she likes him visually. She says he's a lot of fun. She says something else. He's sweet and all that stuff, and he says like she's sweet, she's nice, and she's beautiful. So again, he's basing off also the visual aspect because she's pretty and she is conventionally attractive. Um, but the thing is, she can come off as a little blunt, and maybe that's just because of her autism. But in addition to her autism, she isn't. She has dyscalculia. She has dyslexia. It's just very interesting. I was a little surprised, but I learned like maybe some years ago that people can be have dyscalculia, like you know where when they watch, they look at math in the I don't know if you've noticed this. Like I don't have dyslexia, but I know somebody who does. But when you try to read something and your mind for some reason it shifts the words just a little bit. Um, I've done it, and sometimes when I have to like focus hard so the words can just kind of sit there and I can just read it. But that's when I happen when I'm like I sometimes like I read and I don't pay attention, and then like the words just they shift just a little bit. They don't shift a whole lot. So I can imagine somebody with dyslexia where those words are constantly shifting around in their mind, and it's almost like it takes them longer to process those words. But or I mean not just process those words, but mentally like have them fixed, and so they can focus on what the word is, process it, understand it, and continue to read it through the sentence and stuff like that. But I just find it to be interesting. Uh, so she teaches people, from what I can understand, with autism and stuff like that. So she works with kids. Um, what I was going back to basically her approach, because he says she's sweet and he seems to be a nice guy, and nice people tend to be pretty agreeable, and and he seems to be pretty agreeable because I think conventionally she comes off as a little blunt, and not just blunt, just like just her delivery comes off as a little flat, and so it comes off socially as blunt, and comes off therefore socially as like a smidge harsh. So he doesn't really mind that, and she likes him, so she's putting in more effort to communicate with him, versus if she didn't. So it works in its own way. We just have to see later on how that works, how that fits together with them and their goals and ambitions. But I always find the subtext pretty interesting. How when people say they could say the same thing, they could say, "Oh, he's great. Oh, she's great. Oh, they're fun. Oh, they're cute. Oh, they're nice." It can mean two different things based off a collection of other things that are not talked about or that are implied actually. And so I like watching Love on the Spectrum because it teaches even people who might be neurotypical, or just not socially adept, about what dating is about. And we definitely need more of that because dating is a wildlands out here. It's like a cesspool of guesses, assumptions, and a bunch of fear and tactics to avoid pain. Forgive me, I had a tender thing about that, and it was just a little irritating, just how bad, not bad, but just incompetent dating is. Because yeah, it's just yeah.